The Miami Heat are one of the younger teams in the NBA, only being in existence for 36 years. It's also one of the stranger franchises, as for some reason they not only retired Michael Jordan's number, he never played for the Heat, and also Dan Marino's number, who for those who don't know is a legendary Miami Dolphins quarterback who wore 13 for a football team in the National Football League. He never played basketball. Now this is obviously unofficial as Bam Adebayo wears 13, but it's still very unique as his and Michael Jordan's jerseys hang in the rafters, like they played for seasons of them and are retired. It's really bizarre. But this matches some of the all-time players that have stood up for the franchise, as the list is jam-packed full of Hall of Famers and some of the best basketball players of all time. At the franchise's inception, stars like Glenn Rice, Tim Hardaway, and Alonzo Mourning gave the Miami fandom something to cheer for, making the playoffs countless times and even getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Miami Heat were one of those rare NBA expansion teams that saw massive success early on, but these players would pale in comparison to who they would select with the number 5 overall pick in the 2003 NBA draft. For most, Dwayne Wade is the Miami Heat. Not only did he prove to be one of the most lethal shooting guards of all time, but with the Big Diesel Shaquille O'Neal as number 2, he would defeat the Dallas Mavericks in an unreal finals performance to give the Heat their first NBA championship in 2006. But it wouldn't be his only one. It wouldn't be his only all-time teammate either. In 2010, LeBron James would make his infamous decision to team up with not one, but 2 players from his draft class to join the Miami Heat and officially give life to what we know as the modern Big Three era. Even though they fell short of the 8 championships that LeBron said they'd win, Wade, fellow 2003 draft pick and Hall of Famer Chris Bosh, and LeBron James would go to 4 straight NBA Finals and win back-to-back championships in the process. After LeBron would go back to Cleveland and Bosh would have to unfortunately medically retire, Wade would finish out his career as the face of the Miami Heat. He was there before they got there, and he was there when they left. And many thought the new era would take a while to arrive, but the 305 was staying partying with Jimmy Buckets. Now, we know Jimmy Butler today as an unreal player, but before that, we just thought Jimmy was a great guy, a great number 2 option, but he not only led the Heat back to the finals in 2020, he just did it again this year. And with All-Star Bam Adebayo on his side, the Heat could make another finals appearance and maybe even win this time. But not with all these Hall of Famers and great players does it come the all-time and obvious question of which one of these guys is not the best, but the GOAT of the franchise. So let's find out who is the greatest player in Miami Heat history. Yo, what's up everybody, it's your boy 2KJ here, and today we're going to go over the Miami Heat and their roster of legendary players to find out who is the greatest player in their franchise's history. If you like the content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and put who you want in the next episode down below. But let's dive into our GOAT pyramid and see what all-time players we're working with. Starting with the third tier, and here we have players who can be considered fan favorites of the franchise. These are guys who were stars for their squads during their time as Miami Heat, or guys who are still building their resume towards becoming an all-time great. In this list, we have Hall of Famers Tim Hardaway and Alonzo Mourning, Bam Adebayo, Glenn Rice, and Mr. 305 himself, Udonis Haslem. As you can already tell, this criteria is going to be steep competition-wise this episode, as we have so many guys who are or will be in the Hall of Fame and can make a run for the GOAT status. In Tier 2, we have guys who are integral to their team either winning a championship or their team making the finals. Shorter list with only Shaq, Jimmy Butler, and Chris Bosh qualifying for this moniker. And at last, we have the 2 players who qualify for GOAT status, Dwayne Wade and LeBron James. Both of these players are the only 2 in Heat history to win the Finals MVP trophy, and both of them led their teams as the number 1 option of the championship. So which one is greater? Well, let's work our way from the bottom to the top, and let's find out. Starting first, the Miami Heat began as an expansion team in the 1988-1989 season, but the city already had huge roots in basketball prior to then. Not only did they host 2 iconic college programs in Florida and the U, but they were also home to an ABA team, the Miami Floridans. The first couple of seasons were uneventful, but with the bright spot of Glenn Rice helping to give the franchise something to look forward to. A familiar face if you've been watching some of these Case for Franchise GOAT videos, Rice was a stellar player for the early years of the Heat after getting drafted 4th overall in the 1989 draft. While he wouldn't make an all-star team for the Heat, he would give the franchise something exciting to fill the seats for, making the playoffs twice in his 6-year tenure with the team. In 1995, after legendary coach Pat Riley would be brought in as team president and head coach, the culture would shift dramatically. Glenn Rice would be traded to the Hornets for a young all-star Alonzo Mourning, and he would also acquire fellow Hall of Famer Tim Hardaway, transform the Heat instantly into championship contenders. We've already talked about Mourning in a previous episode, but like I said, he was not at his best and most impactful years playing as a member of those Charlotte Hornets. And when he got to the Heat, that's when he made his mark and turning into a Hall of Famer. Not only did he reach a career high in scoring with 23.3 points per game in 1996, but he would also go on to make 5 of his 7 All-Star appearances with the team, also winning his 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards as well. He would join forces with Tim Hardaway, who drafted to the Golden State Warriors with the 14th pick in the 1989 NBA draft, and would quickly prove his prowess as one of the more elite guards in the NBA, forming the famous Run TMC Warriors with Chris Mullin and Mitch Richmond. He put together 6 successful seasons with 3 All-Star appearances and was traded to the Heat the same year as Alonzo Mourning. He would go on to have some of his best seasons these years, finishing 4th in MVP voting in 1997, and with his All-Star big Alonzo Mourning, they would net Miami 6 straight playoff appearances, even winning 61 games and going to the conference finals in 1997. Unfortunately, the pair would never make it there again, as they were defeated by the Chicago Bulls, and a lack of final success has me putting this pair in the fan favorite tier because of that. The next 2 people on this list find their way on here for 2 different reasons. Bam Adebayo has established himself as one of the best defensive power forwards in the league, and as of late has started to establish his presence on the offensive side of the floor as well. Bam made his 2nd All-Star appearance this year and has improved his scoring average to 20.4 points per game, 9.2 rebounds, making his 4th All-Defensive team as well. The reason Bam is included on this list is for the reason that he is integral to their 2 finals appearances so far, and as long as he continues to improve his offensive production, I can see him being one of the premier power forwards for a long time, which is why I've decided to include him on this list, because I think he will end up here anyway. His teammate and the final member of our fan favorites tier also makes an appearance on this list for a completely different reason. Mr. 305 himself, Udonis Haslem, is the first player on any of these Case for Franchise GOATs lists that is on here not for his basketball ability, but for his contributions to the franchise as a whole. Udonis Haslem is one of those unique players that not only went to high school and college in Miami, but was drafted to the Miami Heat and then played 20 seasons for the franchise. Oh, I bet you want to know where he was born? Take a wild guess. Miami, Florida. Udonis Haslem is a solid rotational player. He's the type of guy you need to have on a championship team. He gets you those extra buckets. He plays solid defense, but he is literally somebody who was born and raised in Florida for his entire life and then got to play 20 seasons for the franchise he probably grew up idolizing. Like, that is insane. If that doesn't make somebody a fan favorite, I don't know what does. And not only that, he is integral to them winning their 2006 championship, and he sacrificed when LeBron came to town in order to help them win 2 more. So he's not just some random guy. He 100% deserves his flowers for his longevity and impact to the Miami Heat as a franchise. And that's exactly why I've decided to add him up on my list. Moving up to the next tier are players that can be considered all-timers for the franchise. Like I mentioned earlier, because the ceiling is just so much higher for the Miami Heat in terms of players and accolades, some guys who might have usually found their way onto this tier simply just don't make the cut because the tier is just too stacked. So first of all, we're going to start in terms of, who comes earlier, who comes later. So we're going to start off with Shaquille O'Neal. I doubt Shaq needs an introduction, as he's going to show up in 2 more of these lists, maybe even winning franchise GOAT in both of those. But for those who don't know, Shaq is undoubtedly one of the most overpowering and dominating NBA players ever. And after beefing with Kobe and three-peating, he decided that it was time to finally leave the show and team up with D-Wade in Miami. The result was this team taking Miami from 42 wins to 59 wins in a conference finals appearance the next year. And to top this off even more, they would win the finals that next year in 2006. While Shaq only played 5 years for the team, he is undoubtedly the reason they got that far in the first place, and while not as dominant as his LA years, giving D-Wade a reliable big that could still oppose his will on the other team allowed him to absolutely flourish. Another all-time player that played a similar role was Chris Bosh. Unfortunately, Bosh might end up as one of those Hall of Famers who are almost forgotten by time, but those who know how elite he is know that Bosh was the prototype of players like Bam Adebayo today, and other shooting big men. Bosh played his first 7 seasons in Toronto, making 5 straight All-Star appearances before teaming up with Wade and James to form the infamous Miami Heatles. Besides getting the rebound that saved LeBron's legacy, Bosh was just incredible and elite as he always was, even though he was in a diminished role as the third option. He continued his excellence by making 6 more All-Star appearances before his early retirement due to blood clots. Had his career not have ended so soon, we might have even seen the 2006 Cavs go against these Heat, which would have been an incredibly memorable series. Either way, we all know that the Heat don't make 4 straight appearances without Bosh, and for sure do not win the 2013 series against the Spurs without his iconic rebound off James' miss that would find its way back out to Ray Allen to force OT in Game 6. The last member of the All-Star tier, well, the all-time tier, is of course Jimmy Butler. Not only does he make this criteria as one of 3 players to lead the Heat to the finals as the first option, but he has done it twice. Not only that, but in his short time as a member of the Heat, he has had some unreal performances, including having some insane legacy games during the Bucks in the first round, putting up monster final stat lines against the juggernaut Lakers, and just overall being one of the most lethal playoff performances of this generation. We can only wait and see if they'll make it back to the finals this year. Maybe if they do, they'll finally capture the franchise's 4th finals victory. Moving on to the final tier, we have 2 players who are in contention for the franchise GOAT. On one hand, we have a guy who was drafted to this franchise and brought them their first NBA championship. On the other hand, we have the man that made them nearly immortal. Dwayne Wade was drafted out of Marquette in the legendary 2003 NBA draft with the 5th overall pick. Now we know how stacked this draft was, but in hindsight, back then, it was just another incredible draft. Wade was highly touted as a franchise-altering player, but they did not know how true that would be. A year before Wade was drafted, the Heat would only go on to win 25 games, and the year after, they'd go on to win 42 and ended up losing in the second round of the playoffs. The addition of Lamar Odom was fantastic, and Eddie Jones had another stellar season, but it was their rookie that proved that he was the savior the franchise had been looking for. Wade averaged 16.2 points per game, 4.5 assists and 4 rebounds, best for third on the team, and upped that number to a team-high 18 points per game, 5.6 assists and 4 rebounds in the playoffs. In his first go-around in the spotlight of the playoffs, Wade proved that he could not only just handle the spotlight, but make it shine only on him. The next season, he would increase his total to 24.1 points per game, make his first All-NBA appearance with the second team, and make his first All-NBA defensive team with the second team selection as well. In addition, he would make his first All-Star appearance of 13 total. With the addition of Hall of Famer Shaquille O'Neal, the Heat would go on from being a 20-win team in 2002 to being 1 game away from making their first NBA Finals only 3 years later. But in his 3rd year, they would once again improve even more. Wade was an All-Star and an All-NBA second-team selection. He improved his scoring to a staggering 27.2 points per game, adding 7.5 assists and 4.7 rebounds, and continued to absolutely torch teams in the playoffs. And in 2006, he would take his team to their first NBA Finals against the Dallas Mavericks. And he put on one of the most unreal scoring performances in a finals we have ever seen. He was truly unguardable in this series and went to the rack with a ferocity that we have not seen in most players, and really goes on to show how terrifying it was to guard Flash in his prime. He would average 34.7 points per game in the 6-game series and captured his first NBA Finals MVP and the first championship in Miami Heat history. His next couple of years would be stacked with more accolades, but never really making it out of the first round in his next 3 playoff appearances. But that would all change when the kid from Akron, Ohio and the Cleveland Cavaliers would take his talents to South Beach. LeBron James at this point was arguably the best player in the whole NBA. He had accolades, all-star appearances, MVPs, but he hadn't won a championship yet. Looking to finally take his talents to the next level, James would form the first modern super team with Wade and Bosh, and the rest was history. In James' 4 years playing with the Miami Heat, he would win 2 MVPs, get robbed of a Defensive Player of the Year award. Yes, I will die on that hill. He absolutely deserved over Marc Gasol, 3 all-defensive first-team selections, and some of the most iconic moments of his career. As a matter of fact, he was so good with the Heat that he ranks 2nd all-time in win shares. Yeah, just let that set in. He played 4 seasons for that team, and he is 2nd all-time in win shares. That is unreal. Ahead of literally every single other player on this list except for Dwayne Wade. That is actually bonkers. In all these years we played for the Heat, he established himself as easily the best player in the league. LeBron James was at his physical prime during this year and was borderline unstoppable, except for Jason Terry and JJ Barea. But that's besides the point. He was absolutely unstoppable, and he's going to be a hard guy to beat out for the greatest player ever. But let's see if those 4 years are enough to tackle a career of greatness. Let's find out who is the greatest player in Miami Heat history. Now, looking at our comparison here, it's not even close. Like, let's be honest here, everybody coming into this video, we knew who was the franchise GOAT. We just wanted to see how good of a case everybody else could make against Wade. LeBron James can make a case as the best player to ever put on a Miami Heat jersey. Yes, that is an argument you can make. He won 2 MVPs and just overall was in his physical prime during these years and was just literally the greatest player on the planet. Like, he was unreal during this stretch. But we know that greatness and best are 2 completely different things. And we know that D. Wade is the greatest. He leads in points, seasons played, overall All-NBA appearances, and win shares by a staggering margin. And LeBron obviously has more MVPs and all-defensive first selections, but if we're talking about overall impact and who is greater, LeBron doesn't even go to Miami if Wade isn't there. So that, to me, just completely ends the argument. If Wade wasn't there, LeBron's not going there. That shows how great Wade is, that a player of James's caliber would want to play with him. And also, he played pretty much his whole entire career for the franchise and is literally like the face of the franchise. When you think of the Miami Heat, you think of Dwayne Wade. So I think that pretty much sells the score. As you can see here, he wins most of the categories. He takes it 4-2 here on the totals, and it's a pretty obvious one. Dwayne Wade is the greatest player in Miami Heat history by a very, very large margin. And what do you guys think about this episode of Case for Franchise GOAT? I personally think this one was pretty clear cut, like I said, but it's interesting to see how the other great players in the franchise stack up against Wade. Once again, the poll is in the community tab of my channel. To get there, go to my YouTube channel. You can click on the little button right there, and then go to the community tab. Subscribe if you haven't. And if you want to, drop a like on the video, put who you want in the comment section below for the next Case of Franchise GOAT episode. But, as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace!